So we're gonna start melting some chocolate to make herbal chocolate truffles. So we've got a double boiler going on over here with hot water in the bottom to heat up the chocolate inside of that metal platter so that the chocolate doesn't burn inside of the bottom of a normal pot. So we've got about 8 ounces of chocolate in there and roughly 2/3 cups of, this is straight coconut fat over here. It's also nice to use coconut milk with a little bit of coconut fat inside of it. So if you are one who uses microwaves, it can also be very easy to simply microwave your chocolate and coconut fat or coconut milk in order to liquidize it into a workable consistency. All right, now we can just watch and wait. So let's just do 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So we want to put in just the right amount of powder so that it's lends its flavors and its properties in, but not too much powder to make things crazy and make the texture like chunky. So we'll put in just a little bit of cayenne for fun and a little bit of heat. And because I love a little bit of heat in my chocolate. And we'll do the chai for this particular truffles. But really, imagine the flavor of cacao, turmeric, rose chai with chocolate truffles. Yum. So you can go a variety of different directions with your chocolate truffles. For easy herbal chocolates, simply melt your chocolate, perhaps with a little bit of coconut fat in a double boiler or a microwave, and then add in a spoonful or 2 of your preferred herbal powders. I once attended a lecture with Bevan Clare who spoke about turmeric herbal chocolates and how she uses chocolate and herbal powders as a way to deliver a large quantity of turmeric to her clients who need a large quantity of turmeric in their systems. And chocolate is a fabulous mode of delivery for many different people, but particularly children and adults who are connected to their childlike nature, self included. I love chocolate as a mode of delivery of herbal medicines because it tastes lovely, it feels lovely, and as you will soon see, this particular method can be quite beautiful as well. So we're starting to get a nice melty consistency with our chocolate and our fat. And then we'll be adding in about a tablespoon of our cacao, turmeric, rose chai powder. Then we'll cool things down a little bit so that it's workable by putting it into the fridge, or if you live in a cold environment, putting it outside. And then we can work the chocolate into the little truffle balls. Okay, just a little bit longer, then I'll add the powders in. Powder into our truffle in process. Rose, cacao, turmeric, cinnamon, ginger, licorice, cardamom, clove, black pepper, and nutmeg. And all that is going into this chocolate right here. Lower down the heat a little bit. For the chocolate truffles, they make a very delightful end of the day treat. That's my favorite way of consuming the truffles, is putting it in the freezer and just slowly having them as a treat every once in a while. They also make really lovely things to bring to potlucks and as gifts, such as for Valentine's Day or whatever kind of love gift you might wish to present to someone or some beings. So now that the powder is fully enmeshed in the chocolate, and just mixing it and making sure everybody is equally balanced, this can go in the fridge. And we wait. So now that the chocolate has had an opportunity to solidify a little bit and is at the right consistency where it's pretty, a little bit liquidy, but solid enough that we can kind of shape it into balls, we're going to be rolling them into balls. So this is a fabulous project to do with children. Children love making herbal products, herbal anything in general, just because it's such an amazing experience to pick something from the yard or the garden and then make something out of it. The kids that I've worked with over the years never fail to find wonder and creativity with plant-based projects. And there's something about chocolate. There's something about chocolate and how it elicits wonder and delight and deliciousness, and of course there's a little bit of sugar as well, and kids absolutely adore making herbal chocolates, and these truffles are so beautiful and taste so good that every single child that I have ever worked with has been enamored with making herbal chocolate truffles. And I would like to introduce you to one particular child who I get to work with on a very consistent basis. Ben, come on in. So this is my husband, Ben, my big kid, who's my biggest fan of herbal chocolate truffles, and we'll let him get started on making the truffles with cacao. So we're rolling with coconuts over here on my side and cacao nibs on his side, and then just putting on a little bit of dried rose petal just for beauty and a little bit of the aromatics of rose on top. And something else that you could do is crush up the rose petals and roll the truffles in rose petals as well. Hey, look at that one. Nice. And then if you're ever making rose medicine, such as rose tincture or rose honey infusion, or anything in which you have leftover rose mark. So the mark is the plant material that you place into the jar to make the infusion, and the menstrua is the liquid that you pour into along with the plant material to make the infusion. So the leftover mark, after you've strained whatever project it is that you've made with the rose, can also really be lovely to make something called rose bark, in which you simply melt the chocolate, maybe add in a little bit of coconut fat, and then you can add in the rose mark and maybe some nuts or seeds or raisins or dates or currants or goji berries or anything else to lend a little bit more flavor and texture to your rose bark. Getting messy over here. The herbal chocolate truffles, you can store them in the freezer to eat over a long period of time if you want to eat it a little bit more slowly and not get yourself all sugar high really fast. And if you do plan to eat it a bit more quickly, or if you have other people in your family, or if you're bringing it to a party and sharing it with other people, then you just store it in the fridge. Because of the coconut milk and coconut fat content, if this becomes warm, then it will melt and get soft and runny and lose its shape and consistency.
If you put them in the fridge, you have to hide them from your significant others. They don't last very long.
I love using rose, but then you have to get the chocolate so that it's just barely workable, because the chocolate eats up the rose and covers up the beautiful color of the rose really easily. And so it needs to be a little bit more delicate to work with. But it tastes so lovely, and if you can get it just right, that pink color is gorgeous. Tulsi is also really lovely for the nervine, relaxing energetics and quality, but also for the flavor. I love the aromatics in that light green color. Someone else who is also light green and really wonderful to work with for herbal chocolate truffles are matcha balls. So you can make chocolate matcha based truffles or zoom balls, bliss balls, or energy balls, many different names for those kind of energy ball type foods with less chocolate and more nut butter for a bit more protein and less cacao content. And with the matcha, it also creates a vivid, beautiful green color. And that one, because matcha has a little bit of caffeine inside, also gives you a little bit of energy boost. And we're coming to the end of our piles. Nice.
I think we can tell who made which balls.
Oh, how so?
The Jilings are very almost spherical. Mine are pretty globular.
Okay. Now we can add rose petals.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Rose is such a useful, gorgeous, delicious, aromatic, fantastic in so many different ways, and easy to find all over the US. I have collected and worked with rose medicine really all over the US when they were at the height of their bloom, and you walk by and you just go like this and all the petals fall into my hand. I walked around with my collection bag and just like barely touching the petals and having them fall into my hand, put it into my collection sack, just filled up collection sacks full of roses, and go home and make all kinds of preparations and just smell amazing. Back when I was first studying about rose, I was learning with Lucy Machella in Connecticut, and we would go off on these girl dates, woman dates, and both of us would bring some kind of a meal to share. She would usually make some kind of a curry, and I would usually make some kind of a vegetable dish. And we went to the beach this one really hot, summery day at the height of the summer, July or August, and just hot. And the beach roses, Rosa rugosa, growing right next to the water. You walk out onto a spit, and there's kind of water on both sides. There's active ocean water, Atlantic on the one side, and on the other side is a protected bay. And just picking, same collection sacks, different purpose, well, different place, picking bags and bags full of roses, and go back on our way home. The car is filled with roses, and just the heat of the sun heating up the car and heating up all the roses. And we stop in a shopping center, grocery center, to get ice cream and coconut milk, and throw some of the fresh rose petals into the coconut milk and just shake it up in the water bottle, and it turns this incredible pink color and just smells and tastes amazing. And then layer ice cream, rose petals, ice cream, rose petals, and just like sit there with our legs kicked up, like half naked ladies in the parking lot with like rose fumes streaming out of the vehicle, and just like cackling, just cackling, so happy, so completely blissed out on roses. And what an amazing memory. And that's what got me into herbal medicine. And I think these guys are ready. Yay!